This is true. Most of our views are us watching along.
Yep. No, I actually will get up to about 50 after the first week on it. I have no clue who's watching these things, but
Oh, I was talking about
I
the
don't.
live.
I'm
Yeah,
actually
I don't.
I'm actually curious where which one was our best watched one. I'm curious
XCOM.
which one that is. XCOM.
Yeah. Which makes sense. It's the one that crossed over the most with content I've actually
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
You mean it wasn't
Adds
any of
importance
our
playing with
16
sound.
games?
Those actually don't get bad views, but because I think our friends watch it. But
There.
it's a great concept, and I might eventually move this over to the trivial video gaming stuff, or I don't know. But I think if I ever get any traction on it, which first I got to make my trivia stuff, which means first I got to learn JavaScript.
I don't know how making stuff on how putting stuff onto platforms like Spotify works or makes any sense.
That's actually something Baggins and I know.
What was that? I'll put it on Spotify.
Yeah, how to do literal podcast stuff because of the
Yeah.
Brandon Sanderson podcast.
Yep.
All right, let's get started, shall we? Just one sec. I should turn my fan off.
I don't know if I'm fully ready, but ready as I'm gonna be. So
Yeah, you'll be fine. You got this. All right, here we go. I hope everyone's ready for a lame claim to fame. I actually babysat for one of the developers of Ensemble Studios while he was working on Age of Empires 2, which is why I ever had the game, because he was at our church and my dad bought it. And so I babysat his kid. I didn't know what autism was until I babysat the kid, which some might think, oh, was it difficult? No, it was super easy. All he wanted to do was watch Digimon, and I was down. Great babysitting gig. Loved babysitting for him. Decided to look him up, and I found out he also worked up on another game I played, Defense Grid 2, The Awakening, Small World. This is episode 89 of I Think We Overleveled. We're talking about Age of Empires, mostly 1 and 2. How is everyone today?
I was not expecting that as the intro.
That's right. It's my lame claim to fame. I babysat for him.
Doing okay.
Yeah. So this was actually an idea pitched by Mithril. Something he said that I didn't really recognize until he pointed it out, was that before Age of Empires, RTSs were kind of different. I'm just going to pull up Dune 2, what a lot of people consider the first RTS. And go ahead, take it away.
Sure, yeah. So we were talking about UI design in a previous episode, and I brought up Age of Empires a little bit in the pre-pod discussion of, well, there's some interesting things with how Age of Empires was the first RTS to do the horizontal layout. And what I mean by that is having your... Well, Dune 2 is the first RTS. We'll start there.
Yeah.
And as you can see, you have the top bar with some options and money and whatnot.
And it's
you
a
have
full
bar on the
above head
side.
view, not isometric.
Yeah, it's fully top down from above. You have the gameplay window is framed on multiple sides with a solid block on the right there with the minimap and the unit controls, and then on the top with mentat and options and credits and I guess a chat thing on what's happening, I think. I don't know. Dune 2 made a lot of decisions that had to be made because no one else had done an RTS before. And a surprising amount of those stuck through quite some time. I say quite some time. It was 92. And if we go to, yeah, like Warcraft, we'll just jump in there. You don't have as big of a bar on the top, but you still have a little bit. It's framing your resources. And then on the side there, you have mini-map and unit
But it's still all the
information and
stuff on the
building.
side.
But it's still on the side there. And so, yeah, you're still working in that smaller framed window. And Warcraft 2 did similar things. Command and Conquer did very similar things. Sorry, I know we're jumping around a lot in this early on here, but
Well, it's kind of the point. Oh, well,
if we can jump into
there we go.
somewhere that's an actual gameplay and not a FMV cutscene. Yeah, same sort of thing. You know, your info is all on the right. I guess you do have a little bit of like the top bar of like the options stuff, but
And things
And so
are
this is how
starting to
RTS
get a little more 3D-ish, but it's still mostly that top-down.
mostly top down, a little bit of 3D. Like it's still sprites, obviously, but
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be sprites until...
it's going to be
Warcraft-
sprites until
Warcraft
yeah,
3.
Warcraft 3.
Well, yeah, because Warcraft 2 had the pre-rendered 3D sprites.
Was Age of Mythology before Warcraft 3? I forget the exact release
3 was
dates.
99, I think.
I do not know.
That was earlier than I thought.
Maybe
Um,
maybe I'm remembering wrong.
But yeah. So, and I
Oh, 2.
am not. Sorry,
Sorry.
no, I cut you off. I was not super familiar with the exact timeline because I thought that StarCraft was the first game to do the new layout, but actually it was Age of Empires 1 doing the layout that RTS games would become known for all time because they realized monitors are wider than they are tall and people have eyes parallel, next to each other horizontally and not vertically. So the horizontal space, you have actually more usable space to work with. So why don't we take that sidebar and move it to the bottom? And that was a game changer.
Literally.
And so after Age of Empires 1, you have StarCraft, you have Warcraft 3, you have I think, did Supreme Commander do this as well, or were they still on the side? And also, I'm less familiar with the newer Command and Conquers, if they put stuff on the bottom or still on the side.
Well, I can kind of see the logic of, okay, we have more space horizontally, so we should try to use it so that we can have it both ways. But yeah, like you said, we're kind of more designed to look back and forth.
Yeah. You can just absorb more information in your peripheral vision. And while people to this day, depending on the game they play, will argue whether the minimap should be on the bottom left or the bottom right, it's gameplay decisions, like UI decisions that were made. Age of Empires, one of the big things it did was question the existing UI at the time and ask, can we do this better?
Well,
And
and
judging by all the games that came after, I think they did.
one of the other things, because while I didn't play it before Age of Empires, I did play one of the Command and Conquers after. I feel like Age of Empires did a better job of indicating line of sight because they had like the two versions of Fog of War, what you could actually see around you and then the area you've explored. And I just felt like it was very clear what each unit was seeing.
Yeah,
More so than when I
definitely.
played Command and Conquer the first time.
Yeah, Warcraft 2 technically was the first one to do the layered black map and Fog of War being two different things, but Age of Empires 1 as well was pretty close on War 2's heels with that. Also, something that Command and Conquer did was they were doing vision circles and trying to do as circular as possible. And the way they did the draw distance of vision around units was very odd to say the least. You would have a lot of times where you move a unit, and if you continually move them in a straight line, sometimes they will reveal a circle around where they are, but not the space in which they are actually in. They can actually still be hidden from themselves, which is hilarious.
Doesn't really make sense.
One of the small changes I remember they made in this game, they took a little bit of inspiration from Warcraft 2, is Warcraft 2 had the critters, which were the non-combative NPC units, the like
Yes.
sheep and all this stuff. This game said, hey, let's make that a game mechanic. And so they actually had the villagers hunt like animals for meat and stuff, because this was one of the like a lot of the RTSs that I played, food wasn't particularly a resource other than build farm to support more people. But in this one, like food is, they have wood and food and gold and stone.
Mhm.
And so having food, it was just like, this actually kind of makes sense. And so it was just a little bit of an adjustment of the resource balancing act.
Oh yeah, resources for Age of Empires is a huge point of discussion because it went from like one, technically two resources in like Command and Conquer, where you have money and then you have power, which power is technically a resource but kind of is handled differently. So then you have like two resources in Warcraft, wood and gold, which would then, in StarCraft evolve to Vespene gas and minerals.
And then
Age of
Warcraft
Empires,
2,
Supply.
well,
we,
then
and
Warcraft 2
supply,
added in
which-
oil.
Yeah, Warcraft 2 had oil. You did have food or supply in the Warcraft games. And so that was, technically like a third tertiary resource. And so Age of Empires is like, we'll have 4 core resources plus population.
But it was
And-
interesting because they kind of, had some interesting theming and balancing around that. Because, start off meat that make people good, meat good, awesome. And then you move on to lumber. It's like, okay, we got to use this to build buildings. And then you go to stone and gold, and those sort of came in around the same time. But it's it's like, again, there's theming around it. Stone is kind of your fortifications and your stronger, sturdier, later development buildings, and gold is your advancements and stuff like
Well,
that.
and you had to go find
Technology.
it.
Yes.
And that was something that, for me, when I played StarCraft the first time, it blew my mind. It's like, wait, so my resources are just here? But it's like, there's other bases you can build, but yeah, they're always just here at a base. And it was just like, oh, okay. And it was one of those, do I like that?
Yeah.
Because it's different. And as we all know, we don't like things that are different.
Oftentimes, yeah, but sometimes different can be fresh.
Yeah.
Speaking of resources as well, the variety in ways in which you can gather things. It's not just like, okay, sure, you hunt animals for meat or you look at berries for meat, but it's not just that. You can build farms, you can fish, you can trade your resources at the market for other resources. There are so many different ways to gather these different resources, at least food specifically, there's different ways. But yeah, I agree. They did a very good job of making it feel logical where you're getting, like, what your resources are used for. Where it's like, okay, minerals, what's the equivalent of a mineral in StarCraft? Why do some units just cost minerals? Why do other things cost gas? It's kind of nebulously like gas is for tech or for spellcasters or for sciencey things, but it's all nebulous in terms of like, why is it useful? Why do we need it? How is it being used?
Yeah, it's the advanced things.
But like, as for like a lore reason why Vespene is important, I'm sure it exists, but no one really knows or cares about it. Meanwhile, it's like, okay, food for people, wood for buildings and bows and siege weapons.
And
stone
boats.
for walls and castles and towers, and then gold for paying for advancement. So like technologies, um, higher tier units
Hmm.
might need gold. It's also kind of a replacement for metal as well sometimes, where it's in age one at least, where it's like, okay, your uh, axemen don't, just need food, but your swordmen need a mix of food and gold.
Yeah. And then there's me who, because he had never played an RTS before, was always somehow stuck just with just pikemen by the end of the game.
So I'm just curious, does it have too many currencies? Because I know like an important thing that the Blizzard developers talked about is how they didn't want to make it too complicated with too many types of currency.
And that's a point of discussion. Some people do say that Age of Empires has that four resources is too many. Two is very streamlined. Three feels odd. Four, I think because all four resources have a dedicated thing that they do, and they're all important at different times, they manage to space it out and make it feel understandable. But I also totally understand people who are like getting into a late game situation and don't have any idea how to balance their resources. Some might say in Age 2 specifically, that's why the market exists to sell and buy resources. That way, it's like if you have a massive surplus of one and drought of another, you can kind of even that out.
The other thing is that, when Blizzard was talking about that, I assume you're talking about when they came up with StarCraft, because they had gone up to 3 with Warcraft 2, and it had worked pretty well, but it would make sense to drop down to 2 in StarCraft, since you have 3 different factions that play very, very differently from each other.
I'm trying to think, even in Warcraft 2, it was the same 3 resources whether you were orcs or humans. But then again, since it was kind of a fantasy setting, that
also
there wasn't going to be that much difference between them. But
that's the thing is in Warcraft 2, the 2 factions, like, there were slight differences, but they were basically reskins of each other.
But the more I think about it, I think it kind of depends on how long you expect a certain map to last. Because I play Satisfactory and Factorio. Like, the number of resources in those games is insane. But it's one map that you're on there for, days on end. Like,
Yeah,
And not a
playing on the
competitive
same
map.
and it's not competitive. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, and Warcraft didn't really become genuinely competitive until StarCraft. Like, yes, it had a competitive mode, but that was mostly, hey, I want to play with my buddies,
No, that's true. In Warcraft 2, I was mainly playing the campaign. Well, I mean, that's also true in StarCraft as well, but
yeah,
it was a much bigger portion.
Most people were mostly playing the campaign.
Yeah, and
but even still, the campaign maps were like what, half an hour at most. How long were the maps in Age of Empires?
When I played competitively, they tended to be 5 minutes because people would rush because I was an idiot kid and I didn't understand what was happening.
So I can give you some information based on modern, like, professional level play. I don't necessarily know about campaign. Campaigns can go anywhere from a couple minutes to like hour plus, depending on what map you're doing. But modern, like, competitive 1v1 matches, I would say that there's a whole breadth of how long a match takes, but it's like 30 to 40 minutes. I've like 20 to 40 minutes basically, with 20 on the kind of the shorter end and 40 on the long tail of it. Whereas I think a modern, like a StarCraft or StarCraft 2 match, for most matchups tends to be between 10 to 20. So it's definitely a longer
Unless some
game
jerk decides to
on
build Brood
average.
Lords and then we're screwed.
Yeah, again, it depends on matchup. StarCraft 1, Terran versus Terran is either over by 9 minutes or takes an hour plus.
Yep.
Uh,
As we're
but
playing whack-a-mole with siege tanks.
yeah, there's the lines. But yeah, I think Age of Empires, and something that it does very interesting is while you had this idea of teching up and getting to different tiers of things in other games, like in Warcraft, you have a bit of a tech tree. You have to get, your stable before you can get or blacksmith before you can get a stable, before you can get like a wizard's tower or something. And then Warcraft 2, you have the Great Hall or Town Hall, which upgrades to, a keep and then a castle, which then kind of unlocks different things. Age of Empires really focused in on the age systems of being four set ages, each one not being tied to a building per se. Like if you lose your town center, you don't age back down to Stone Age. You are
Yeah.
still at where you are.
But the building is where you can advance.
The building is just where you advance. But you do spend a significant amount of resources and time in advancing whilst also having requirements as well. And that was something very interesting of like, okay, even if I lose my buildings, even if I lose my main base, shall we say, I still keep all the stuff that I advanced. And yes, you kept, like your plus researches and whatnot, your bonuses as well. But you can just build a barracks and then be still making the high tier units. You don't have to rebuild a barracks and a keep and an ogre thing and whatever to make, your top tier stuff.
Yeah.
Another interesting, like.
Well, the other thing that I found interesting, because again, this is so backwards to because I actually played some competitive StarCraft 2 back in the day, and it's one of those I now look at this and wonder, okay, how would I play this differently now having some experience with how RTSs are supposed to be played, as opposed to the way I played it, which was hunker down in one base and build a bunch of trebuchets and slowly advance your way. And it's one of those things that I loved. It has asymmetric gameplay. Like it was a good precursor to StarCraft in that certain civilizations couldn't build certain things. Like their tech tree would stop out at certain things, and then they each had their own special unit. And I remember I hated Britain because they had the longbowmen that outraged freaking castles.
Talk about that, where, as we were talking about with like Warcraft's being like you have two factions, but they're mostly mirrored outside of like spellcasters and a couple of minor differences outside of them. Age of Empires has a ton of different factions you can play as, but all of them are different with both a couple passive bonuses that they have, as well as limitations in what techs they can't get. And with Age 1, you didn't have full unique units yet. They were just like only certain civs can access certain tech options. Like if you're the Romans, you get almost every late game option because the Romans are just overpowered. I think the only thing you don't get is like heavy horse archers, I want to say, and elephants.
It's also kind of a reflection of one of the things this game does is they're trying to actually reflect history a little bit.
Yeah. There was interesting some comments on an old GDC postmortem of Civilization where Sandy Peterson, who helped with the original Civilization and went on to I forget if he was a director or whatnot on Age of Empires, and really pushed that of like, okay, well, we did Civilization. What can we do that kind of, takes that and makes it real time, but you're still trying to follow that sense of what civilization was and how these different things logically came about. And then as you're creating these different civilization factions of, okay, well, we want to have some logical historical basis in why they have what they have. And in Age 1, that became weird where it's like, okay, certain civs were really good in like the Bronze Age, and then Iron Age hits and they don't really gain very much of anything else outside of it. Whereas like other civs, it's like you just have to get to the Iron Age and then your tech kind of explodes from there. And Age 2 tried to balance that out a little bit where everyone does have, like, you might have some power spikes in different ages based on your civ, but everyone has the majority of the tech tree, of the important parts of the tech tree all throughout, and it's mostly just the unique stuff that they focus around. But you do have some that still have gaps. Like the Goths can't build stone walls at all, which is then kind of like, well, you can't defend, you might as well attack.
Yep.
Or the Huns that don't need houses for population.
Yeah.
Or don't the Mongols get like special cavalry units?
Yeah, the Mongol at the castle they get the unique Mangudai unit, which are horse archers that up until a certain patch just a couple years ago in Definitive Edition, they had no wind up on their attack.
Jeez.
So normally with an attack you have a wind up.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's accurate,
and then the cooldown.
It definitely simulates the hit and run, but
But it's like where most cav archers in the game are like mostly kind of wind up, and then they shoot, and then you can run a little bit. But then it's like if you want to be shooting, you have to kind of stand still. Mongols were Mangudai used to be the reverse, where they just instantly fire even before the animation draws the bow. The arrow is already in the air. And they were a terror, and those had to eventually get nerfed, but not until like Definitive Edition in like 2018 or something.
Not until everyone complaining about it has stopped playing video games because they have children a long time ago.
Yeah, or I mean, Definitive Edition is still played to this day. It's still getting updates. It's still getting DLC, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. You know, this updated version of this game from like 2000 is still getting more DLC and showing that RTS games can be active and played and successful if properly managed.
Because it's got a better development cycle than Concord, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, while RTS is definitely a niche genre in the gaming market today, you still have enough fans and enough players of it that so long as you can keep making content with a reasonable budget at a reasonable price, you'll keep getting people buying it. And so they're releasing DLCs every couple months for like $10 to $15, which have a couple campaigns, a couple new civs, and some other like visual art stuff that they add in. But that people without them, they can't play as those civs in multiplayer, but they can still play against them. So they're not subdividing their community horribly.
Yeah. Well, and it also has the advantage of an RTS is not a game that computing-wise is very expensive, and so as there's a bit of a tech crunch on, it's a style of game that you can develop for and know that there's still kind of an audience for it. Because you're not worried about can it run Crisis.
It's kind of funny that you say that, because with modern computers, sure, no problem. With older computers, if you had a certain number of units on the map at once, all doing stuff, they would chug, they would get slow, they would have issues. And that's why the lower population limit exists.
Yeah.
Of, like, in Age of Empires 1, you had a pop limit of 50. You can only have 50 units total, and that included your workers, your villagers. And And that is a very small population limit once you actually start playing and you're like, oh, in order to have the economy, I need like 30 villagers at least, ideally more. But if you have that many villagers, you don't have enough pop space for an army. But that low limit was specifically designed with people's older, at the time, even older PCs in mind to be able to run the thing. And nowadays, they've raised the pop limit all the way to 200 for most things because, it doesn't matter. But they still keep some of the campaigns at that lower pop limit just artificially because that's what the campaign was designed for. And they're trying to make sure that people have at least something of a similar experience. Even though as they create more DLC for Definitive Edition, they've gone back and updated the campaigns to be like, oh, say, you're the Hun campaign and you're fighting the Romans. Well, let's make them the actual Romans now that we have instead of, Byzantines or whatever they were, because it wouldn't quite have been Byzantine at that point,
Yeah. Well, this was also, I just remembered this art style where it's I don't know the term, maybe you got for the old medieval art style. I don't know. But I liked, it was actually really good storytelling.
Oh yeah.
That fit the genre they were doing.
Mm-hmm. You had a lot of people putting on, admittedly some cheesy accents, sure, at the time, but it was still dramatic. You had like the sketchbook, like almost like graphite on parchment sort of look with the drawings. And it's something that they've actually gotten some criticism for in the Definitive Edition is that they've redubbed all the old voice acting. They've redone a lot of those sketches. And while it still is good and high quality, a lot of people kind of miss some of the energy and emotion that existed in the originals.
They miss the jank.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's part of it.
Yeah, I've been watching someone doing a nostalgia run of they've gotten somehow the old Age of Kings or Age of Conquerors edition running and are watching all of the old stuff and all the old styles and commenting on all the difference between then and DE. And they made some really good points, or it was either them or in the comments, of the emotionality of some of the storytelling, whereas some of the critiques around the modern campaigns is that while they're being very historically accurate, or trying to be mostly historically accurate, and trying to be very oftentimes positive on how they present whatever culture that they are doing the campaign on, which is understandable, sometimes it loses some of that drama, the dramatic element. And also sometimes you lose elements of the... I'm scraping for what the word is.
Truthfulness?
But...
All I know is you're saying drama. It does make me wonder, is your main concern worrying about enemies that will attack you, or you're more worried about surviving and having your people not starve to death?
It's mostly attacking.
I'm talking about
It's mostly attacking.
Yeah, it's mostly... There's no starvation, survival mechanics in this. It's...
Okay.
Yeah. You're gathering resources, and I'm talking about in the between campaigns, the scroll, graph,
your mission table,
charcoal on parchment,
things like that.
The mission table and description of the storytelling and the way that the writing is in terms of the drama and dramatics of it. It's telling kind of a historical narrative and oftentimes just kind of walking you through.
It's how I learned about Joan of Arc.
It's how I first learned about William Wallace.
Mm-hmm. Although, something that it did is that with the first William Wallace campaign, it was the Battle of Stirling or the Battle of Falkirk, the final one of the training campaign. They twist what actually happened, because what actually happened is that the Celts got totally beat out. William Wallace was captured and whatnot. But in the campaign, because you're playing as the Celts, you win. And they praise the victory and, what
And William
could have
Wallace lived
potentially have
happily
happened,
ever after.
They really
Yeah,
never
yeah.
could take our freedom.
Exactly. And so and they mention that as kind of a nod of like, yes, we are making historical games, historical basis, and we are teaching some real history, but we also want to be able to have fun with it and to be able to have people think about, okay, well, what would have happened had things gone differently? And I think it's an interesting tightrope to walk when you have like historical accuracy kind of, I don't know how much it was at the forefront of their minds. They talked about in this the GDC talk I keep coming back to mentally, they talked about how a lot of times they would first get their inspiration or get their information from like what would be like like the children's section. And like, okay, let's start here. Let's start with the basics. Let's start with the things that people know. And then let's start to build on details around that and then build up to more interesting events or stuff like that versus trying to start with something that's kind of far off and nebulous or complex. Like they don't jump into like the War of the Roses,
Right. The funny thing though is I was able to sell my parents on this game because hey, I'm learning about history.
But the thing is, you kind of are if you want to be.
But am I learning accurate history?
Well, it just
That's
makes
the
me wonder.
question.
It's like, your 6-year-old comes up to you and says, "Hey, can I play Assassin's Creed to learn history?"
I was a little older than 6. So.
A little bit, but
Fair
it is.
Look. This game is how I learned. That Joan of Arc was able to push the Britons to the sea because she typed, "How do you turn this on?" into chat 50 times and attacked them with an army of Shelby Cobras.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely elements of like, as I'm actually learning more real history at times through like videos and books and whatnot. It's interesting to think back on Age of Empires and some of the things that I thought were like, oh, super accurate, not at all. But some of the things I thought were like, oh yeah, no way that actually happened. It's like, oh yeah, no, that totally did. Frederick Barbarossa did just drown in his armor on the way to the crusade. That happened. And it's just like,
Was it
okay,
anticlimactic?
sure.
Yes, but it was real.
Yeah. Did they carry his body, preserved in a pickle jar all the way to Jerusalem? I don't think that happened, but
We don't know.
It's the things you have to do for, to have something of a satisfying campaign.
So, what I think is probably the most historically accurate part of Age of Empires is the soundtrack and the names of the songs in the soundtrack.
I love the soundtrack.
So,
but
okay,
the
I don't
names
know
are
this. What are you
crazy.
guys
Do have
talking
them
about?
Pulled up.
Okay, I've pulled up the list of the names of the songs in Age of Empires 2. And I'm just going to read you the titles of the songs. All right? Okay. Schamberger.
Sorry. These are not titles that you find in-game. These are if you go into the actual files and see what the music files are named.
Okay.
Yeah. So we got Schamberger. I Will Beat on Your Behind. Drizzle. Machina del Diablo. T-Station. Bass Bag. Ride, Lawrence, Ride. Smells Like Crickets, Tastes Like Chicken. Operation Monkey. Actually, Smells Like Crickets, Tastes Like Chicken. That's actually a pretty good song, if I'm honest. Taser. Pork Parts. The Monkey Book.
Man, they're
Rich
obsessed with
Corinthian
monkeys.
Leather. Carne y Helado. Alusa.
Meat with ice
And-
cream?
Yes. And, of course, a fantastic song, the ending credit song, which is called Where Credit Is Due.
Okay, that's a good pun. That's a good one.
And of course, the expansion added "Tide Me Over, Warm 'Em Ups," "Voodoo Doo Doo Doo," the Bovinian Derivative, Case in Point Pace, Seamus and Chamois, Shookies in the Bank, Basura Basura, Neep Ninny Bod, and Quest for Butter as the main title theme of the expansion.
I mean, at a certain level, isn't it all about butter?
It's really something.
It's certainly smooth like butter, that's for sure.
And it's like the music tracks, if you've ever played either game really, but especially Age 2, you will have some of these music tracks just like, you might not remember what they are, but then you hear them and it's like, oh yeah, no, that music is in my soul somewhere. It is just locked in.
It's the core memories.
Yeah, the sleeper agent within you will awaken and just be like, okay, time to train men-at-arms. Let's go.
The thing is these songs, they're not like super catchy or memorable. They're kind of more like, but they're not fully atmospheric either. Like, they're kind of chill. Like, if it comes up on a playlist, you're like, yeah, I'll listen to it, as opposed to, super ambience music that you're like, I'm not playing, I don't want to hear this song. But it's also not one that normally just pops in your head unless it randomly does. But I don't know. It's a very unique and interesting soundtrack.
It's not earworms per se, but like I said, it's music that you will recognize immediately if you have heard it before. Like, if you've played the game and heard it before, if you listen to another of one of the tracks again that you recognize, it's like immediately you're back in Age of Empires, and it's such an effective soundtrack in terms of that.
Yeah, that's one I can't say I remember much of it because of the reasons what you're saying. But yeah, I might have to listen to that then, because I'm just realizing, yeah, it's been a while. Shoot, okay, let's take a look at this on Steam, see what the prices are. Age of Empires 2.
While you're doing that, something I wanted to point out they didn't do it as much in Age 2, but in Age 1, every single campaign had a unique failure message, including the tutorials, had a unique failure message where, after you complete a campaign and you win, they'll give you a message of like, and this happened, and it was good. But these failure messages, the campaign is like, when a herd of gazelles saw your approach, they stampeded you to death. It's like, great. If you somehow fail the map with no enemies, where you just have to gather food.
Is there like a time limit?
No, there's no time limit.
How could you fail?
The only way you would see that message is if you quit out, like give up and quit. And so I feel like 90 some odd % of people have never seen most of these messages before. And that's why, when I played through, I just put up a video of all of them. And it's just so interesting of like the things they decided to spend time on. And this might just be the definitive edition. I don't know if this was in the base game. But getting their narrator to just read off all these different things. Oftentimes ways in which, like, assumedly whatever position you are assumed to be in at this time, either dies or gets like demoted and trashed on for your failure.
As is wont to happen.
I just think it's kind of funny how they decided, yeah, this is where we're gonna, have our narrator extra speak. Just give them random defeat.
This is where we're spending our money.
Mm-hmm.
No,
but I mean the Age 1 definitive edition, I don't think they had announced Age 2 definitive yet when they announced Age 1, and so I don't know how many they actually planned to make at the time, but they really went all out with Age 1 definitive, and it really shows once they were like, okay, let's do Age 2 definitive, let's do an Age 3 definitive, let's keep making some DLCs for, at least for Age 2, because Age 2 was by far the most successful of them.
I did not realize they were still releasing DLC. That's awesome.
Oh, they released a new one like last month, I want to say.
Wait, for
Age
which
2.
game? For
For
Age
Age
2.
of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. One
Wow.
second. Let me pull it up
Okay.
on Steam. Server maintenance. Oh yeah, no, they have like roughly monthly balance patches. They have when was the last update? Regular update. DLC release. The Last Chieftains. They have a South American, Mesoamerican DLC campaign set February 17th.
Man, that beats the stuffing out of the old joke of when Blizzard updated StarCraft in like 2012 or whatever, and everyone was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why are there patch notes for the original StarCraft? And the answer was they were updating it so that it could work on like widescreen monitors and such like that. But it was just I just remember, I can't remember what the webcomic was, but they were just like, if you can patch original StarCraft, what's the limit? And then it cuts to Super Mario Brothers, and it's like, reduce the cool time of Fireball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Balance is interesting because it's not quite, it's kind of an in-between of like, they're doing a lot of smaller tweaks. They're trying to introduce stuff. They're trying to change stuff when they have a major DLC introduced, but not change so much that it's unrecognizable. Recently, they've been trying to do a lot more with their naval combat, with their boats, because it's kind of been seen for a long time as one of the weaker parts of the game. And so
whoever builds boats,
rebalance that. Yeah, exactly. It's like, unless you're on a map that's all islands, in which case you kind of have to.
Yeah. But
I think Warcraft 2 did a better job of the naval combat.
Yeah, they kind of leaned into the naval combat.
I mean, wasn't it called Tides of Darkness? Like, isn't it all about that?
Warcraft 2 was interesting because they did a lot with the boats. They emphasized that like over half the maps in the base campaign, you have to use boats to sail to the enemy or to complete an ocean objective. And because it's so ever present, you kind of were then forced to engage with it. But Warcraft 2 boats were odd because they were so microable. If you knew what you were doing, you could have 2 destroyers literally clear out an entire like speedrunners and challenge runners have literally have shown they can take 2 destroyers and like do an entire mission with like just 2 boats. And I'm just like, it's kind of
they just micro their little hearts out.
Yeah, exactly, because of the way especially that the AI reacts to it.
I actually really enjoy those sorts of challenges on a campaign. Mm-hmm. The whole like, okay, I got these. Well, I mean, with the boats was fun because I actually remember that very last humans mission in Warcraft 2. To beat it, my brother would take care of the land units, and I took care of the boat segments, and we kind of alternated going back and forth. But my best example of kind of that micromanaging was in StarCraft. There's one campaign level where you get 6 Dark Templars, and you can't make more, and you just have those 6. And technically, you just need to get them down to like a spot where I think the Jim Raynor's battle cruiser had crashed or something like that. But I decided let's just use these 6 Dark Templar, just a unique unit that you don't have access to, and especially in StarCraft 1 because it wasn't a unit you could make. Just use those 6 units and wipe out the entire map, and it's so fun those challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can really be fun having those, and Age of Empires doesn't really allow you to do those super much. It wasn't until like later definitive edition where like the hero units you get in campaigns healed, or where like the campaign was designed where if you lose your hero you can still keep going. The old classic campaigns, heroes didn't heal, and if they died, you lost. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
if Joan of Arc happens to die, sure, she's a powerful unit, but she doesn't restore her health by her own,
Yeah,
until
so
later,
I
definitive
always
edition.
hid the special units. It's like, nope, you're going nowhere close because I'm gonna
They get
misclick and you're
garrisoned
gonna
in the town
die.
center, and that then makes the map so much harder for you because you are not getting that power spike that the game expects you to have, but at the same time, you're not then also just randomly losing in the middle of nowhere because a catapult decided that the center of your army looked like a great target, and that's where their hero happened to be.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is,
Um,
Age of Empires, in comparison to StarCraft, is the combat feels slower. Like the units are not as responsive; they're sluggish.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
the formation system in the stance and formation system of Age of Empires is another huge sticking point, I think, as well for a lot of people who are
Okay.
used to the more snappy reaction of Warcraft and Starcraft units, like the Blizzard RTSs, um, where you especially get this once you start moving a whole squad of units, is that one, units will always move at the speed of the slowest unit in the control group. So if you have like a catapult in with your cavalry, then all your horses are walking at catapult speeds.
Yeah,
You
because they're
have to
keeping
command
formation.
them separately. You have to command them separately if you want them to move forward faster. But another thing is that based on the distance of where you click, okay, it's two. I think one, it's based on the difference of where you click. The formation will rotate, and all the units will try to rotate around their formation as well. But also, the units keep wanting to be in that formation as you're recommanding them. And so sometimes you get into situations where you're trying to retreat, but because your units are all spread out, they want to come back into a formation before they start moving. And so sometimes your units will literally be moving backwards the opposite direction of where you told them to go for a full second or two before they start actually going the way you want them to. And it can be exceedingly frustrating because of that.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those. I remember day 9 doing a breakdown of StarCraft 1 versus StarCraft 2 movement and how I forget which it is, but I think it's StarCraft 1 where the units will clump up to one spot and then remember that they're supposed to be in different spots and sort of push out. And so the goal with like Mutalisks is to get them all to clump up and then start moving them immediately so that they don't have a chance to spread out. Because what you want to do is have them come in, just take one swing and then fly out.
Yeah.
But StarCraft 2, they automatically will spread out better. And so it changes how your tactics. And so it's one of these things where little decisions in RTSs have huge implications in the combat.
Mm-hmm. And that's on a mechanical engine level as well.
Yeah.
If on whether that the decision for the player is even allowed to be made.
Yeah. Well, it's like, with your siege weapons, it's random where it's going to land. It's not exact, and so you can take splash damage if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm. It's also
it's also how I learned what Trebuchet was.
Yeah, no, the mischance. There's a ton of details under the hood, but yeah, trebuchets in particular are notorious for missing the target you're shooting at because they have super low base accuracy. But to make up for that, they have the longest range of anything in the game by far. They can shoot over a screen away, think siege tanks. Um, but what was I going to say? In terms of other decisions that really transform the game, something that Age of Empires does that most RTS don't is not in the campaigns, but in competitive matches. The maps are randomly generated from a set seed. So the map
Oh,
you
really?
choose, Arabia, Gold Rush, Arena, Black Forest, will give certain parameters for the map to generate in, but the specifics on exactly where and how those things are filled out are randomized. For instance,
Huh.
if you load into a map of I'll say Arabia because that's one that I know. It's you will always get 2 stone piles of 4 rocks each, 2 gold piles of 4 rocks each. I could be wrong on the details, but I'll just, for best of my memory, you'll always get 2 piles of stone, 2 piles of gold, 2 larger forest areas, 10 sheep and 2 boars and 1 or 2 packs of 4 gazelles for hunt and 1 patch of 5 berry bushes. And so it's okay, you have those things that will always be around your starting location. But where specifically they are around your starting location will vary. Sometimes you will have both your golds are far off, kind of on the edge of where they could spawn. Sometimes they're pretty close to your town center. There's algorithms on where they can and can't spawn, and so it's not purely random. But the fact that there is any level of randomness and change up is very different from something like StarCraft, where people honestly look at and say, hey, that's been optimized to such a degree where people are oh yeah, no, the Vespene gas has to always be at the top or at a certain side of the base because otherwise it's very slightly slower to gather from, and so you would need 4 workers instead of 3 to optimally gather from it. And so
Yeah.
all these different things are so finely tuned that there's no way the maps could be randomly generated. They have to be handcrafted very meticulously, or the
No, they're
advantage will swing
star-crafted.
wildly in StarCraft. But in Age of Empires, they're a lot more freeform and a lot more willing to have that random map generation in it.
Well, and
And they're
especially because
still
it's kind of
successful and they're still doing good stuff.
it's because exploration is really part of that entire thing. Whereas it's not exploration in StarCraft, it's scouting. It's all about figuring out what buildings are the building. Wait a minute, we're this far in the game and they don't have X? That doesn't make sense. Crap, do they have a proxy? And it changes things when you again, it goes back to the design. When you know what you're setting up, it changes player behavior.
Yeah. And it's very interesting to see how many modern RTS have tried to just go the StarCraft route of everything is mapped, everything is set and static. We have these specific maps instead of trying to be okay, well, what if we made an algorithm that generated random maps within these parameters? Would that be more fun? Would that be more interesting? And I think depending on the type of game you have and the type of gameplay specifics that you're dealing with, that can be more or less successful. But it shows, I think what Age of Empires shows is that it's doing RTS differently than everyone else does RTS, yet it still works.
Yeah, well, but that's the thing is, it doesn't have too many times people try and fit things into a mold and don't try to experiment enough. And now it's the problem of if you're trying to get return on investment, or in the case of most of these smaller studios, stay alive. It's dangerous to be okay, we're gonna try this brand new thing. We're having fun with it. but we're already in a niche market. How much more niche can you get? Now, that's the plus side of the indie market is, you have teams of a small number of people. You can afford to take more risks because even if you find a niche market, it might be big enough for your small little team to survive.
Yeah, you want to talk about experimental? The Age series was very experimental. They went from history to mythology.
Yeah. Yeah, they
And
did.
it's like, okay, you moved from 2D sprites on an isometric map to fully 3D models. You went from like you adapted the age system into the like an advancement era system. You introduced mythological units, which took up more population than one per unit, which like StarCraft was already doing at the time, but
Mhm.
you know,
Well, and
more
then
of
you also
that.
have the hero units that Warcraft 3 introduced.
You have the hero units. Was Age of Mythology before? No, Warcraft 3, we talked about this. Warcraft 3 was first, I believe. But Age of Empires, the big thing it did was the top bar abilities, the god powers or whatnot, like throwing down meteors or creating rain for better farming or all these different types of stuff, which then was seen echoed in Legacy of the Void with the Spear of Adun abilities
Yeah,
as
forgot about those.
channel I follow, Giant Grant Games, drew that connection as well of, Age of Mythology did this first, and then later things did it, kind of did it as well, but it's not something that took off as quickly or was picked up on as quickly because it's kind of so out there. It
Yeah,
feels
well, and
almost a little more like Command and Conquer super weapon style
yeah,
of things.
well, and Command and Conquer because of the super weapons. Those are win condition things. Those are ultimates in a
Mhm.
MOBA. It's one of those things that you have to be very careful about them because when you have them, suddenly the entire game kind of warps around them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like the point is no longer, okay, how do I fight back against them when they have the orbital ion cannon? The game becomes, well, how can you stop them from getting the orbital ion cannon in the first place?
Or how do I
Mhm.
bide my
Or get
time
yours
until I have
first.
it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so Age of
I've tended to find things like that, like big nukes. I feel in a lot of games they end up becoming a bit degenerative to the gameplay
Mhm.
because everything just gets warped around it. Because it's too
Mhm.
good to not use yet. You can't waste it. Because if you waste it, it's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, and that's a fine line that Age of Empires tried, or Age of Mythology tried to find with its god powers, where it's like, okay, sure, maybe the final one you get is like totally game warping, but the other ones you get might be smaller powers that are better for a smaller skirmish or like heal up after a big fight or something. Um,
One,
and
it's
so
very
trying to
game
find ways
changing
to introduce.
in the Age. It's very game changing in the Age series because, War or StarCraft has spellcasters, and so
Mhm.
that's kind of part of the DNA. Whereas this is very out there, and so I mean they feel like acts of God in Age of Mythology.
Mhm. Yeah, and that also sings to the theming of it of like it feels kind of natural when you're able to do them in the game in a way that if you were playing Age of Empires just really wouldn't would be like, why do I have this? But Age of Mythology,
Yeah.
because of the extra theming around it, is like, oh yeah, no, this feels like it makes total sense.
Well, and the other thing is Age of Mythology, because of how they decided to build it. It's very interesting because like we just saw there, you choose a god to worship,
Hmm.
and it lets you lean into what the theme is.
Yeah.
And it's RTSs are always interesting with theming because like every moment you're playing, it's the gameplay, but if you don't nail the theme or the story, it's just an empty, Yeah, it's a strategy game, but so is chess.
It's just a
Yeah,
reskin.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the flavor.
Theming is huge for RTS games. Like, it's huge for games in general. Like you've talked before about how you like sci-fi theming in general more than fantasy theming, which is why XCOM spoke to you more than like Fire Emblem, for instance.
I say that, and yet Hades is probably my best game of all time, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite on that part, but...
Well,
What are
general
you talking
trends...
about? Hades is science fiction.
Yeah, it's true. He has a gun. Anyway.
Yeah, general trends, but then also, individual elements when the theming is nailed so well that it just kind of can overpower even some of that bias that you might have against it, I guess. And I think Hades in particular does that really well. But it's interesting with like Age of Empires being... When you think of the theming of RTS games, you have a lot of like future technology sci-fi, like StarCraft, Warhammer
It is,
40K.
yeah, it's kind of funny that Blizzard picked... It's like, which you gonna do, science fiction or fantasy? And they're like, why not both?
Yeah, fantasy, you have Warcraft, but you don't really have too much other like fantasy, like high fantasy style RTS. Mm-hmm. You have Warcraft, and then I guess you have...
Wasn't Warcraft and StarCraft both cases that they wanted to get the Warhammer, but they didn't get the rights to it, so they kind of made their own spin-off?
Well, it's definitely true of it's definitely true of Warcraft.
Part of it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true of StarCraft. It might just be hey, it worked with Warcraft. Why not do it again?
Well, because you can definitely see the pieces of it in StarCraft, because the Zerg are just the Tyranids, the Protoss are the Eldari.
Yeah.
There's tons of stuff and tons of...
Well, I mean, at that point, they'd already, made their own version of Warhammer. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, at that point, why would they even try to get the license a second time?
Like, we got away with it this first time.
Well, and on top of it, again. At that time, if the Games Workshop was on shakier copyright ground back then, because as bad as StarCraft and Warcraft were at stealing stuff, Games Workshop is 10 times worse with the amount of stuff they stole from Dune and Eldritch.
Yep.
Oh, I guess I'm not as familiar with that. Interesting.
It's a rabbit hole, but they've gone on long enough now that they're kind of fine because they've been doing it for so long. But back then, it would have been a shakier thing.
Mm-hmm. I was actually going to say there's a funny story with that. I was listening to a podcast recently where they had Bill Roper on of old Blizzard fame.
Okay.
And he said that initially when they were doing, like, they had done Warcraft and Warcraft 2, and they were like, we're sick of fantasy, we want to do sci-fi. And so they were shopping around licenses, and they said that they were actually going to, for a while, be making a Star Wars RTS. And then the Star Wars desktop, like Yoda's Desktop Adventures or whatever, came out, and then George Lucas pulled and it's like, and then George Lucas or LucasArts or whatever was like, they pulled the plug on like all like video game adaptations for a time at least, because they're just like, hold on, no, this is very negative to the brand, we need to reassess. And obviously they eventually made buckets of Star Wars games and everything else, including a Star Wars themed Age of Empires clone called Galactic Battlegrounds. One sec, can I find a video of this?
Oh man, I haven't heard of this one.
That is just so ironic, because when I think of Star Wars, I think of how much the video games propped up the brand, whereas now I think of the video games as improving the brand and the movies as destroying the brand.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place.
It's so interesting how things have flipped on its head, but yes, let me...
yeah, it depends on which game, because they've had spotty luck at best.
Tell me if this doesn't just look like Age of Empires.
I'm sorry. What? This
Age of Empires
Empire.
in Star
man,
Wars.
when you said it was a clone, I underestimated.
It's the
Wait,
same.
what?
Age of Empire Strikes Back. Got it.
Age
no,
of, oh my gosh. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so Star
Dang it,
Wars
the
Galactic
obvious joke was I am
Battlegrounds-
mad I didn't come up with that, Baggins. Dang it.
Well done, Baggins. Well done.
I had this game growing up as a kid, and I loved it. And it is brutally tough in the campaigns, some of them. I did not get very far. But it was very interesting going back as an adult and playing it and being like, okay, how many of these, even the campaign missions, were like rehashes of some of the like the five starting campaigns of Age of Kings, or like some of the Age of Kings or Age of Conquerors expansions or campaigns, and how many of them are, fully original. It's kind of a weird mix of both, where like the tutorial campaign, they're different maps, but they're hitting all the exact same beats as the William Wallace tutorial campaign of Age 2. Just that you are following Qui-Gon, who's teaching a young Chewbacca, basically,
What?
the ropes, which is, it's kind of crazy. So, Galactic Battlegrounds came out after Episode 1. And then they got an expansion after Episode 2 came out, where you got the Confederacy and the Republic
So wait.
as
So it's
factions.
a young Chewbacca.
Mostly it's like Chewbacca's father and then like a young Chewbacca. It's on
Is it
Kashyyyk.
based off of the was it the Christmas special? No.
Look,
No,
when
I
you go
don't
when you
think
go
it
into all the
was.
secondary Star Wars material, it's all basically holiday special. It's holiday special all the way down.
Holiday special, thank you.
Can I get a long play? All campaign. It's a playlist, but
This is also the era of gaming where, because it was a very small community, because gaming was still a bit of a niche hobby, especially PC gaming, which RTSs were. There's a lot of people just blatantly stealing from each other. Because
and this was like
it's just what it is.
almost certainly done. This one was almost certainly done with their permission, because I'm pretty sure they basically licensed out the engine.
Okay.
LucasArts let you work with them or license out the engine that Age 2 used. We might need to have little bits of like movie clips.
Yeah, you might want to skip past that, please. Thank you.
Fine. Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
But yeah, so see, episodes 1, 4, 5, 6, episode 2. That dates the game immensely.
Yeah.
But yeah, Darth Vader, Boss Nass, because you have to have a Gungan campaign, because why not? 9, the Trade Federation campaign, basic training with Qui-Gon Jinn, Princess Leia, and then Chewbacca later on as like against the on Kashyyyk against the Empire and stuff. It's kind of crazy, weird, like fanfic-esque stories adjacent to all of the movies.
I mean, we are far away from the original topic, but this is utterly fascinating.
I had to share this
My
because
mind
it's
is kind of blown
something-
right now.
But I mean, this is Age of Empires. It just happens to be in Star Wars.
Yeah, it
And
is.
they got the voice actors too.
Are you serious?
If that's not Liam Neeson, I don't know if that's Liam Neeson, but it sounds very much like Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon. Hold on. I can't. Is there an IMDb for video game? There has to be.
IMDb now does it for video games usually.
Yeah, just
As long as you know the
IMDb
exact
works.
title.
Video game 2001. So this came out like 1 or 2 years after Age of Empires. Charles. Okay, so I'm not seeing.
Well,
Oh, these are all in order of alphabetical
oh,
by alphabetical by character name. That's not helpful.
That's a choice.
That does make me wonder who's the actor
James
for
Warwick.
Kyle Katarn.
James Warwick, Qui-Gon
Oh,
Jinn.
Oh, okay.
So probably someone who does more work for him on like
wait, did you say?
voice acting.
Huh? Yeah. Well, still, it's impressive they got that close. But man, I'll be honest. I forgot about Age of Mythology completely, and I definitely didn't know about the Star Wars version. This is. I did not
This is
realize
part
how
of
many
Age of
more.
Empires legacy.
Yeah, I did not realize how much legacy Age of Empires had.
But yeah, this is well before like the Star Wars was Empire at War, I want to say, when they were doing like fully unique things and all of this. And this is just yeah, no, this is just straight up
This is the
Age of
era
Empires
of
2,
this is
but
this is
Star
shortly
Wars.
after like the Shadow of the or not Shadow of the Empire of Dark Forces, which are just blatantly Doom games in the Doom engine.
Well,
Oh,
I mean, the first one,
Yeah,
it kind of morphed into Jedi Knight, which was fantastic. And Kyle Katarn's like one of the best characters ever.
yeah,
but yeah,
but I'm saying
early
it's that era where they're
2000s.
kind of there's like, okay, what if we put Star Wars in this thing, and then
Yeah.
and that's sort of the story of gaming at this time. It's someone tries something revolutionary. There's a bunch of copycats. Some of the most of the copycats die. A few of them survive and start to carve out their own niches afterwards. After they start figuring out, okay, what's our games thing though?
The late 90s and early 2000s were truly a magical time to be a gamer.
Yeah. No, I actually had that conversation with my brother. He was asking me, like, is there anything gaming wise you wish, like, oh, I wish I would have been there for that? And I sort of had the realization that not really, because I kind of grew up.
You were there?
Yeah, well, it's just I was there for the big moments. One of the big things I was like, maybe the start of World of Warcraft, I would have liked to have been there for that because I didn't get into it till end of Burning Crusade. And so it would have been fun to be there at the beginning, probably. But that's probably the only thing. But the thing I was just telling, like, I'm like, I've been part of, like, I feel like the early '90s was a golden age during the Sega Nintendo, the height of that console war. I feel
Yep, the
like
Genesis S War. Oh, good
Yeah.
times.
I feel like the late '90s were a bit of a golden age.
Oh, dude, the PS1 era still, I think, has some of the best and
Yeah.
most experimental and unique games of all time.
Well, it's 'cause you get the end of the N64, start of the GameCube era for Nintendo, which had a lot of really experimental stuff. And then the late aughts might be the pinnacle of all of them in terms of just what came out. And I think right now we're in the indies golden age.
Yeah, we're in the AAA decline, but the rise of indies. I agree 100%.
And so it's one of those things where I'm like, I feel like like the only like big gaming thing I wasn't really part of is like I was too young for the arcade era, which is a different style of gaming altogether. Because like that's before couch co-op, it was standing co-op.
You know, I guess for me, the main thing I kind of wish I had been able to partake of more was 90s PC gaming. Just because it was prohibitively expensive to have a PC that could
True.
play a lot of these games. And the Packard Bells that my parents bought could not handle a lot of those games. 3D, forget about it.
I remember growing up with my brother and I shared a computer it was always our dad's old computer. And that he was very much a PC person, PC gaming, whatever. He had a whole box of floppy disks that I'm going to assume he got legitimate copies of all these games that he had on floppy disk. But also had like
the floppies you get from your Vietnamese next door neighbor. Those ones are great.
Yeah, which had some handwritten notes on what password to input when they ask you a question at the start of when they're trying to.
Hey, look,
game,
we all like Mithril Pirates or Mithril's Jenna's dad, Mithril Pirate.
I mean, we all know that Civilization 2 came on floppy disks, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. My version of Civilization 4 came on a CD burned by pirate. Wait a minute.
But yeah, between that and then the like dozen or so PC Gamer demo CDs, I had access to like the first levels of so many different games from 90s PC gaming, 80s to 90s PC gaming. And it was truly a time, yeah.
Man, I feel like that's an indie concept of a game that could be good. Like an indie game.
Demo disc?
The name of the game would be Demo Disc or something like that. And the different levels of the game are all like first levels of different games, and it somehow ties together. I don't know. Feels like there's something there. I don't know what.
UFO 50?
Well, and you need a currency of internet hours that you get from, AOL CDs.
I feel like there's something there. I feel like there's a concept there. I'm not sure what, but
that reminds me. There was a guy who was like, what was it? He was like learning how to develop games, and so he just sort of, the way he learned is he would develop a different game, and then he'd develop another game that kind of took what he learned in the previous one and advanced and everything. And some of the stuff he was doing was really impressive, and I think they actually compiled it into a disc, and it's just sort of it's actually like a lesson walking him through all of his it's like 47 different quote games that he put together that kind of but it's like none of them are fully complete. But yeah, I gotta find that. I remember that was a fascinating story.
Did Age of Empires 1 have the level editor?
I believe it did, but I never really messed around with it until Age 2.
When did Blizzard start doing level editors for Warcraft?
Warcraft 2,
I believe.
Okay, so Warcraft 2 was first then.
Yeah,
2 definitely had it.
Yeah, 2 definitely had it, and you could also do some of the stuff. Like, the scripting in 2 was very basic, but you could still do some small things with it. StarCraft had a lot more.
Oh yeah, StarCraft. Once they showed up, that's the first one where I saw all the custom levels. I remember one of my buddies. He played a version where it was like, it was literally heaven versus hell, and
that was a classic.
Yeah,
like a 3v6 map or 3v5.
No, it was at least his was 1-on-1. But like Zerg was hell, the Protoss were heaven, the static defenses just had insane stats to them, and so it was just like your goal was to like crash through the enemy's gates. You had to go through either the 7 gates of heaven or the 9 gates of hell or whatever, the 9 circles of hell. That's what it is.
Yeah, I played a different one that was, like I said, it was a 3v5 where it's like you could play with fewer people, just kind of with like if you had fewer people and that person would just kind of control all of the things, whereas if you had more people they would subdivide further. Very interesting creative stuff. I remember like the RPG maps that people made in StarCraft, like they made like Lord of the Rings maps.
I remember Wheel of Time maps.
There was so much crazy stuff.
And then they invented an entire genre, and Blizzard has been kicking themselves in the butt ever since.
3.
Invented MOBA. didn't invent, but really also helped push the popularity of tower defense
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I remember my old roommate actually was playing around with it, setting up a Trogdor game based in Warcraft 3.
I remember trying to make, little like 10-year-old me trying to make like a Trogdor themed StarCraft map and never really getting anywhere with it, but like spending my afternoons after school sometimes just trying to make this thing up and see if I could get the scripting to work how I wanted it to. And then also just like not even knowing really what I wanted to do with it. That is a memory unlocked. Wow.
Yeah, the one he was doing, it was just you had a dragon and you're flying around burninating the countryside.
My favorite StarCraft map was called the Chrono Trigger RPG map. Did you ever play that one?
No.
I didn't play that one, but I
Chrono
probably
Trigger
saw
is an
it, like,
RPG.
lobby for it.
Yes, but it was a StarCraft map where you chose one of the characters. Like, if I remember correctly, Chrono was a Dark Templar, Frog was a Zealot, Isla was a Zergling, Robo was... Oh, what was Robo? Was he just...
Was he an SCV?
Maybe...
Possibly?
I mean, he might have just
Goliath or
been a...
something?
He might have been like
Could have been a
Goliath or
siege tank.
Marine. But like you had, so you kind of picked a unit, and it just had this big old map that you had to clear, with a bunch of stuff in there. And the more enemies you killed, your characters got leveled up and got upgrades. It was just fun, and you could play with friends on a PVE co-op experience. It was my favorite map.
Yeah. I think we're drifting a little bit on
It's the point of the
on that, but
podcast.
that's fine.
Stream
It
of
very
conscious
much
is
is
great.
just kind of
Yeah, we're at
rambling around
the
through
end point anyway.
tangents, but yeah.
Final point, Mithril.
Final point is I miss a little bit the era of, the late 90s, early 2000s was the golden era of RTS games. And that golden era would be nowhere near as shining without Age of Empires. And it's proven that even through to this day, you can do RTS very differently and still succeed. And I'd love to see more games try and take the risks that Age of Empires did and just commit to making the best game possible that they can.
All right. I think that's a good capstone. All right. Announcement next week. We don't have it 100%, but we might be doing Lizzie's 16 next week.
Ooh.
We're gonna see. We're waiting to hear back from her if it'll work. If not, I'll have to come up with something else. But the week after is definitely going to be us breaking down the PlayStation 3 announcement, E3 announcement conference, and it was a disaster, and it's hilarious, and it produced so many memes. This is a favorite one of me and Petrivka Pirate because we were living with each other when it was happening, and especially You're the Man Now Dog was coming down with insane memes at the time. So I don't 100%.
PlayStation was just eating every loss possible.
Oh yeah, that was $599 US. That was Ridge
Giant enemy
Racer.
crab.
That was Giant Enemy Crab. That was a monster instantiates. It was
Massive damage.
Oh, it's glorious. Anyway, but so that's in 2 weeks, and we think next week is going to be Lizzie 16. If not, it's going to be a bit later because of stuff.
I hope
Anyway.
that's not next week because I won't be able to be here next week.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see what happens then. We'll see. Anyway, if not then, it might be the 17th of June because I'll also be going on vacation. So it might get we'll see what happens. Anyway, Looney, do you want to promote anything?
nothing in particular comes to mind other than Lizzie's stream.
She seems like a good person to promote. We like her.
Yep, Lizzie Petrichor on Twitch.
Still
All
shiny
right.
hunting, or
Yeah, still shiny hunting.
All right,
what's
Mithril.
the current target? Do you know?
Oh,
I'm not
Sorry,
sure.
I'm putting you on the spot here.
A Pokemon.
Fair enough.
it's a Digimon, and you know it. All right, Mithril.
It could be one of the original 150. YouTube.com/MithralZenith. I haven't uploaded anything in almost 6 months, but I am uploading soon a conversation I had with someone on Fire Emblem 6 and why it's so much of like an off-maligned, looked down on game. It's the one with Roy in it. How many times it's kind of looked down on, and it does all the weird things, but why we love it anyway, and why we love the weird things that other people hate about it. So watch out for that. That's going to be a nice long podcasty rant and ramble session coming up soon.
Blazing Blade? Binding Blade?
Binding Blade. It was the last one before they started doing international releases. Technically, Roy was in Smash Melee before he was in his own game.
What?
If you can believe
Really?
that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Smash released in November in Japan, November 2001. Binding Blade didn't release until March of 2002.
Wow. So Roy isn't from Fire Emblem.
Roy is a Smash Bros. OC.
Fire Emblem imported a game or a character from Smash.
Man,
How about that?
My favorite little tidbit of info for that. Yeah.
Very nice.
I didn't realize that kind of happened twice for Fire Emblem.
Mm-hmm. Sure did.
Wait, twice did... Wait,
Fire Emblem would not exist really without Smash Bros.
Because
especially not in the West.
Was it Violet came out before?
No, it was Corrin before she came out in the States.
Okay.
Yes, because Fates had released in Japan, or If had released in Japan, but Fates had not come to the rest of the world by the time the DLC landed.
Well, but in the case of Roy, that actually wasn't. That was the Japanese version. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because there wasn't.
Yeah, but it's where literally it just like, whereas that was just like, oh, it was a Japanese only game. This was we're gonna release it in Smash before it even comes out. So if we're over here, it's an advertisement. Whereas they discussed not even bringing over the Fire Emblem characters in the American version of Smash.
Mm-hmm.
Before they decided, heck with it, who cares?
That would have been a massive mistake.
The world would never have known the obscenity that is Marth in Melee.
Mr. Fantastic, yeah. Anyway, Baggins.
This past weekend, I actually found a trio of indie films that I decided to watch all of them. It's you may have heard of it. Some of you may have heard of it. It's Lord of the Rings. So every year I do my annual marathon of the extended edition, of course. So if you haven't seen it in a while, just take this as a reminder to go watch it again, because they're still amazing.
Oh yeah, that's that new take on Warhammer, right? No, just kidding. Just kidding.
You monster.
Well, when I'm not watching Baggins walk out of the house to beat Lunasaur to death, I'm over on twitch.tv/splicestream, and we've been doing a lot of XCOM content, and yeah, really nothing else to say in that regard.
Well, in that case, I think we overleveled. I'm coming to your place, Luna. You'll see you in a bit.